My Hero Academia, the shonen that gave us a solid story, some great characters, a cool world concept, good animation, a contentious ending, and a fandom full of toxic shippers who regularly threaten the author's life for not confirming their headcanon and who denied epilogue chapters in the most extreme copium binge I've ever seen. What a wonderful series! Look, while I personally did enjoy My Hero Academia, it just wasn't quite my taste in superhero storytelling. It was heavily focused on the hero's journey, on saving the world, and constantly dodging any sort of relationship development, much to the ire of its most vocal fans. It had some very high and lofty ideals to it, the kind of thing you would expect out of a Spider-Man or Superman comic book, which is all well and good, but it's not really my speed. What I genuinely do like in a superhero story is a more grounded, street-level crime-fighting type of story, dealing with the average evildoer and defending the common man from smaller threats, rather than world-ending demon lords. Batman, Daredevil, Punisher are more my thing. And that's where we get to today's anime, My Hero Academia Vigilantes, or illegals if you prefer that. But for some reason I feel that the usage of that term is not in high demand right now, so I'm going to call it Vigilantes. My Hero Academia Vigilantes is a spin-off of the franchise's main title, set a couple years before the events of My Hero Academia really kick off. And by that I mean probably about a decade if I had to guess. And at the center of this story is one Koichi Himawari, a college student who previously aspired to be a hero. Koichi is an awkward outcast who most people consider creepy or shady, especially when his quirk is the ability to slide around on all fours like some sort of cockroach on wheels. However, he never quite forgot his childhood dream and takes up a double life as nice guy, a local vigilante who basically just does random acts of kindness and picks up trash and gives people directions. One fateful night, however, he happens to become entangled in a scuffle between some thugs and a vigilante idol named Popstep. His attempt to save her doesn't go very well, but that's no problem since a third vigilante happens to show up in the most drunken Batman style of all time, just to kick some ass. And boom, you have the cast. Main character Koichi, or the Crawler as he starts to call himself after this point, bum-ass old man Knuckle Duster, whose hands are apparently rated E for everyone, and the fan service Popstep, who's basically the only good PR that this group ever gets. Popstep's ass is an honorary fourth main character with how much her rear is mentioned in this anime, but we can talk about that later. Insofar as our group is concerned, they don't exactly have a killer lineup of abilities. Koichi and Popstep both have mobility quirks, Koichi's being the aforementioned ability to skate around so long as he's making contact with the object he's gliding on with at least 3 points along his body, generally hands or feet. Popstep's quirk being Leap, which allows her to jump really high and not suffer any consequences from that. And then Knuckle Duster being the most screwed out of all of them in this department as he's officially quirkless, though I choose to have the headcanon that his quirk is making random objects appear to cushion his constant falls from the tops of buildings. Now, while this may not be everyone's thing, I really do like the more grounded take on the world of My Hero Academia. As street-level crime fighting has always been more my style, I've enjoyed that this has dealt largely with handling rampant street thugs and other out-of-control vigilantes. It feels more connected to the actual elements of heroing than the original series in some ways, and I genuinely enjoy that. Plus, with a much smaller cast, you don't actually have the same issue of overcrowding that the plot of the original series felt like it had, where not a lot of the characters were given amazing development, but some of them did get really good spotlights. Of course, this show being a shonen, there is a clear element of humor with constant running gags like Koichi's hero name being repeatedly mispronounced, Popstep being a tsundere, and Knuckle Duster kinda being an intrusive ass all the time. But they're better than just whatever gag becomes a part of their package of tropes. Koichi is a formerly aspiring hero who, much like Deku, looks up to All Might. After failing to become a hero, he attempts to have a fulfilling college life, but his pushiness leads a lot of people to find him creepy and ostracize him in spite of the dude being one of the kindest people around. Popstep has a nice ass, a great tsundere personality. She also has a crush on Koichi due to an interaction they had when they were much younger, but the guy's too dense to even remember it. And while she clearly tries to make herself available to him, he just sucks at handling these sorts of situations, and she's left to try and overcome her own shyness about the whole thing. This aspiring teen idol, in spite of initial objections, helps the other two members of the team because she feels they need her intervention. Unfortunately for her, the only thing most people seem to want to talk about is her butt, a fact that does genuinely irritate her. However, that's really the only thing we have to talk about her, because she's more useless than Sakura. And then we have Knuckle Duster, the punch first, ask questions later, muscle-brained problem child leader of our pack. He's the most experienced in this line of work in spite of having no quirk whatsoever, and is inexplicably fixated on the idea of finding the source of some mysterious drug called Trigger being sold in the area. His instincts are sharp, even if that leads to some comedic results because people don't understand what he's actually getting at. And he's usually pretty good about handling the vigilante thing even when pushed into a corner or people try to figure out what's going on with him. On the other hand, his punch-happy sort of aesthetic belies the fact that he is much smarter and much more manipulative than you would ever expect. And he actually does hold his own in a fight just by raw skill, which makes him a very entertaining character to have around when it comes to the actual action. For chases, Koichi is generally the best, and for fights, Knuckle Duster is pretty much the best. So he may be a battle junkie, but he knows how to play his cards right, and it makes this show that much better. So I end up really liking the cast and being much more invested in them than I was in the original series, especially as you get to see Koichi's powers evolve beyond their initial state pretty quickly. And it isn't just his speed that improves, but the overall viability of his quirk. The more and more he learns to use it, and the more he actually does use it, the more uses he finds for it. And you'll also end up seeing a few familiar faces here and there, like Aizawa, and especially the original Ingenium, who sort of acts as another source of inspiration for Koichi. So it's a solid package of character writing, storytelling, animation, and other smaller elements that deliver a good experience overall. Does it reach the same sort of epic highs that the original My Hero Academia does? No, and I don't really think I can say that it's close. In terms of high-stakes epic battles, My Hero Academia, the mainline series, takes it by a mile. It's a different kind of experience, but overall still a good one, and one that expounds on a part of My Hero Academia that doesn't really get touched on much in what I've seen of the original series. It does a lot of basic heroing, whereas the main series focused on this one big overarching battle to save the entire world. And the fact that this one's stakes are seemingly much lower makes it a much more fun anime in many regards. In fact, this has actually been one of the more fun anime to come out of this season, if you ask me. It has a lot that I feel like the mainline series didn't really do well, particularly with the narrowed down cast and the heavily focused three characters that are the center of this whole thing. It's also a little bit more grounded and deals with a lot of the actual heroing element rather than the educational part and the save the world part. You take a timid and good-hearted young man like Koichi, give him a couple of positive influences like Ingenium, and in some ways Knuckle Duster, and watch him grow to overcome challenges like a real hero. The series may not be as flashy or epic as the original, but it's a solid addition to the world that has somewhat changed my mind on the idea of actually expanding this universe with spin-offs and such. And if you liked this video, why don't you consider smashing those like and subscribe buttons down below? I've got plenty of other videos around here and many more to come, and you may like to check them out.